So we are all collection development librarians from various libraries across our library system, all large public libraries, and we've come together to figure out a system-wide cooperative collection development plan. So the first thing we need to do is determine feasibility. So look at what kinds of data we need to acquire. So what would we need from all of these libraries to make a collective collection development plan work in the area of ebooks?
Just to begin, definitely circulation statistics as far as ebooks go, and then even breaking down further into each of the different categories that are offered for ebooks. We would have to know what books circulate best. So are they the most popular novels? Are they nonfiction? Are they children's books? We would have to check what the circulation statistics are before going forward.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to check with my community to see what my community wants. I would check the list that we keep on our database at work to see, for example, what particular type of genres within the collections that my community members are looking for.
Yeah, I agree, Cheryl. I would say even if each library wanted to create their own sort of survey or feedback form, that said to, hey, patrons, what is it you're looking for? Or if there is a way to, email the people who are accessing the ebooks when they access them, like, hey, can you take this survey when you're done with this book or something like that?
Yeah. Even with if you have a weekly or monthly newsletter, you could send out a link to just within your blaster to like some kind of survey about, hey, we're thinking of doing this. Can you let us know what you'd prefer?
Yeah.
Right. I think it'd be interesting to find out the attitudes of all the stakeholders, make sure that everyone's actually on board, make sure that all of our goals are actually aligned and that we can create this policy that will actually better everybody,
Does anybody feel like a focus group would be more feasible for you than a survey even if we did like a system-wide type thing where we had people come in?
I think that's a good idea because you can put a survey out there, but only certain people take the time to actually fill it out, or they'll say, no thanks. Or so if there was a group of people that were interested in that topic and helping formulate that, then they'd probably be more invested in the results.
Mm-hmm.
I agree, and I'd like to see the format much like we're using today, to make it available to some of my patrons who wouldn't be able to necessarily come in and participate in a focus group. I like the electronic format for those who wouldn't be able to.
I agree, Cheryl, because I think that one of the biggest obstacles that we sometimes face is trying to get patrons to come into the library for special events such as that. So some people are working, like some people have visitor mobility issues and, just a bunch of different things that need to be served to the community. But I think that if it was available to come online and do the focus group, then that would definitely be feasible.
Mm-hmm. And that those people accessing ebooks are probably using, the online technology anyway. Mm-hmm. They probably have easier access to, a Hangout or something.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to make sure that I say that that we are also kind of addressing the second and third parts of this question right now, that where we'll obtain this data and how we'll obtain it. So is there anything else feasibility-wise, like any other data that we need to acquire besides just talking to people to figure out what they want?
We need to find out the strengths and weaknesses of our individual collections and our current collecting practices, I'd say. Before we move forward, find out who's collecting what. Yeah,
because I know, for example, my library already has a huge collection of mysteries because they go out so frequently. So even our ebooks, the majority of them is mysteries. So, if we have so many of them, I don't want another library to then start collecting a lot of them, and then we'll have a lot of overlap where we could be spending that money in a better way.
Right, and that was something that was mentioned in the article from, this was New Frontiers in Collaborative Collection Management, one of the articles from a few weeks ago, and it talked about how much money the system could be saving if only certain libraries bought those ebook items. instead of all of them. Because if all the copies are, multiple copies are being shared instead of a couple copies being shared, then it's kind of a waste of money.
Right.
I mean,
And
it's okay to have 3 or 4, but not like 30 or 40.
Right. Yeah. Especially with that many libraries in a huge system.
Yeah.
well, I think that, like you said, it could be data that could be included in the initial pitch to the director or to professionals that understand, the statistics that come along with it. So I actually wrote this down from that article. If 4 libraries shared 2 copies, the 4 libraries could have 23,754 more titles to share.
Yeah.
So I think that is kind of something that would be jarring and kind of push this forward so that it would be more feasible for the libraries, because that means that they have access to that many more materials.
That's a good point. When we go to sell this to our directors and whatnot, that's a good quote to bring up, because directors and boards tend to really appreciate numbers and solid things like that.
I did found an article that we had read a couple weeks ago with regard to building electronic collections and sharing in a consortium. But the idea is to make sure, actually really make sure and keep it tight on the overlap, so that you're not really wasting the money. We're coming together so that we can save money.
Right.
So I just wanted to make sure that there isn't any overlap.
And I think that would have to be an analysis into how we would make sure that libraries aren't purchasing the same materials over and over and over again. So
Correct.
that if we, like, say we have our 5 libraries here, that we don't all purchase the same material, that only 2 of us buy like a really popular book that is getting used in our collection and would be used by someone online. So
And
it would
how do
have
we
to
go
be
about obtaining that data to make sure that we don't do that?
right collection.
Right.
Yeah. Would that be something that the focus group and, the librarians in the focus group would bring that information back to the home library to say, oh, well, this other place is ordering this, so let's not order it? Or is it something where the librarians will order their own things and then come together and say, this is what we've done?
I think it could be more of a, because as collection development librarians, we have a specialty, or, a lot of collection development librarians do have a specialty, where one library collects a lot of, obviously mine is mysteries and stuff. Grace could be, I don't know, children's materials, where somebody else's is nonfiction, and somebody else's is, they focus primarily on biographies, and then, it all creates a, well-rounded.
Right. So if that was kind of like decided before anyone's really making individual decisions.
Some of our meetings talked about the fact that we would be joint ordering, so we would see what each other orders, even though my invoicing would be and my account number would be different than yours, and you wouldn't see that particular piece of it. But as far as the ordering piece would go, you would see what I would enter into the database, what I would want to order. So we're not overlapping with the orders too.
I think that that's part of being being with the vendor that you choose. So whichever vendor that we use for our ebooks, if we are on that vendor's site as a system, then I think that we would be able to see who's already purchased the book, who's planning to purchase the book before we actually make the order, or buy another copy, you know what I mean? So that there's more access to it. And I think that that's part of, we would have to research with the vendor if that is feasible, which I think it would be, just to be able to see what the whole system is buying.
Are we going to would we choose, well, first of all, how would we choose? Do we choose somebody that we all our libraries have history with, or would we do something different? I don't know, how would we choose a vendor? I'm a little confused on that, and my director is going to want to ask me, okay, so who are we going with, and how did you decide on that vendor?
I think that it would have to be something in the research with that, and I don't know how many vendors are actually available for this type of resource. So I think that it would be pretty narrowed down as far as that goes, especially with how each different patron wants to access it with a different device, so it has to be a vendor that can have people access with their Kindles, with their iPads, with their Android devices. So it would have to be someone that's available to do all of that, but also able to set up a system-wide account. So I think that that would have to be something that would be discussed, and I don't think that would be something with the focus group. I think that would have to be between us on where we're going to go with that.
Mm-hmm.
And if the issue comes up that one of the libraries has to switch out of the vendor that they've been with for a while, which I don't think there would be too big of an issue with that, then we would have to see if there's a way to remediate that or to gain back any costs that were lost due to that.
Yeah.
Okay.
For a greater good, basically, which sounds weird, but
As far as the actual circulation statistics and stuff that we'll need to look at this, how can you guys obtain that? Do you do that right from your directors? Do you need to get it, or can you get it through like workflows or something? Is what we use.
The information is generated. We have that information with reports that we can get from the
Okay, so that's not hard for you guys to put your hands on. So that's easy enough. And then, since this seems pretty feasible that we can develop something collectively, who do you think you'll need to be selling this to in order to make it actually happen? This is question number 2.
I mean, I would say, like we said, definitely the director. But one of my questions would be if each and every director in every library in the system would have to be in, or if it would be a sort of majority says this is what's going to be best. Depending on how many libraries there are in the system too.
I think everyone would have to be 100% on board. It's a voluntary thing to move forward.
Do you think, Lee, that every library in our system would have to be on board, or could our 5 libraries start out and then generate some research and some data from our experience, and then maybe use that as a selling point?
That's true.
Yeah, I think you're right, Cheryl. Once, if it's successful and it looks to everyone from the outside that it's working really well and that we're sharing these things and winding up with a much larger collection due to the collaboration, that others will want to join in, and then obviously then you have to agree to this collection development policy and to all the things set forth by it, and then you're welcome to take part in it and to use all the resources that we've gotten collectively.
Well, in addition, it's not that far off base from what system libraries do already with their interlibrary loan. So I don't think it would be too hard to get people on board, especially with what Grace was saying earlier about the article, that even if not every library in the system participates, they can still have access to those resources, because some libraries that within the system get more money from taxes, from donations, from their friends. So it really depends on each of the libraries and how much money they have allocated to this certain resource. So I don't think that libraries who don't want to participate because they don't want to spend as much money on this type of resource shouldn't have access to it.
Right, yeah. I'm in the Monroe County system, and I mean, even though we're one system, the libraries we have some really small libraries and some very large libraries. So the ILOs and holds are great, because those libraries that do just have smaller collections are able to transport holds for the people at their location. So yeah, I agree with you that I think the resources should be able to be fully accessed.
Okay, I think we have question number 2 covered. So it's just the directors that we'll really need to sell this to, not the higher ups of the system in general, we don't think.
Well, I think that obviously we would have to sell it to the directors first, and then it would have to be sold to the board of the actual system. So like if we're talking like
the individual libraries.
Right, like the Buffalo Erie County Public Library or the Niagara system, it would have to be sent through them, because they would be spearheading it basically to make it system-wide.
And if the board's in charge of the money, the director then takes the idea to the board to get the approval to spend the money in that manner.
Right.
Although my director may require me to make a presentation. She has in the past. So I might have to put something together, and I might look to tap into all of you to help me out with that, should she ask me. So thanks in advance, group.
I think that that would be probably a good idea to put together a professional presentation for
Yeah.
each of the libraries.
Even if the directors aren't asking for it, it can't hurt to have it.
Exactly. And I don't think it hurts to come right out of the gate with a presentation that looks professional. It looks like we've actually put time into it. So good idea, Cheryl.
Thank you, Liz.
So does anybody see any potential problems that we may have implementing this collective collection development plan for ebooks, either within the system in general or within your own library?
Well, I got one concern I would have is popularity. The what ifs with some of the real popular books?
Yeah.
In the wait times and the holds.
Yes.
And
Yeah, I was going to say that as well, Cheryl, because even if the ebooks are more widely accessed than hypothetically having print copies at each library, some vendors or publishing companies, your access is only set to a certain number of checkouts and things like that.
I know personally when I've used Overdrive in the past, a lot of the most popular titles, the newest ones, so anything like Game of Thrones that comes in audiobook is almost always checked out. And the thing is, like, you can put a hold on it so that the second that it comes back, you can get it. And I don't think that, honestly, the wait time for those is any different than the wait time if you put a hold on a regular book within the library.
The only thing I have noticed with that is that if I finish a book, say I get, say, Game of Thrones, for example, I have it for 21 days on Overdrive. I get it, I finish it in 5 days. It doesn't, like I could take a regular book and return it to the book drop and whatever it would be returned. With the ebooks, you have to actually go in and click return title for the title to be returned. Otherwise that, whatever extra 12 days or whatever, is just sitting in my account waiting to go back in. So I feel like some kind of tutorial or outreach to teach people how to use the program appropriately could help with that.
And on the flip side of that too, if some people do choose to keep their items overdue or renew them, but as far as I know with Overdrive, it will return automatically at that 21 days. So if you're not finished, that just goes away.
Yeah.
Well, but in addition, it allows for people to avoid overdue fees, or you have to go to the library.
That's a major selling point.
Like pros and cons to both sides. But yeah, I think that as far as like accessibility, especially for people with mobility issues, like I've said, some libraries offer outreach programs, but not enough. So I think that being able to either go to people who have mobility accessibility issues and showing them how to use it on like either a computer that they have locally or some other device that they may have would be beneficial as well. And I think that this is something that's big for people who can't get to the library. People who are too old or don't have the accessibility that they need to get there for whatever reason. It would just be much easier and much more accommodating for them to be able to use an ebook service. But that's not really a problem.
Right.
What about like people that don't have access to that kind of technology? Obviously, we still have print books, but does anybody see that as a problem within your system, within your library?
I think it can be, and I think that would have to come to more decisions about if we are going to make sure there are print copies, even though there are ebook copies in the system, covering both those formats. Because at my library, there's definitely people that come in every day and use the computers because they don't have the access at home. And I'm actually not sure about this, but in Overdrive, can you You can access the materials on a desktop, correct?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, that would depend. If they wanted to sit in the library and read on the desktop and an electronic resource, then that would be possible, but not as convenient.
Mhm.
They'd have to be in the library if they don't have the technology at home.
Right.
Lee, you keep looking like you want to say something.
There's also just I think it's important to always have technical support on hand for people who are, getting a brand new device, and make sure that they can actually use the device. It gets really complicated sometimes, especially if you're using the desktop app, or rather the desktop, and you're using, say, like a dedicated e-reader. You have to use the desktop digital editions, Adobe digital editions, and it can get really complicated. So, people actually have to learn how to use the software. So like I said, I think it's really important to have, someone always on hand at every library to actually provide instruction for people when they need it.
That could be part of our selling it to the director and board and whatnot, is saying if we want to do this, then we need to make sure also that there's somebody, or that our staff is trained, to be able to help people that come in and are having issues with it.
I know that at my library there are brochures that are offered for each different device, and they share screenshots in the brochures, kind of walking people through. But in addition to that, I agree that each librarian needs to know how to access these materials from each device, which is a lot of undertaking. But I think that once you kind of get the hang of it, it becomes a little bit second nature, because if you think about it, if we're looking at an Apple device, their programming stays pretty much the same throughout each generation.
Yeah.
But if we're looking at Kindles, that might be a little bit more difficult, because in order to use Overdrive with your Kindle, you have to use your computer, download it through Amazon, and then have it uploaded to your Kindle. So that would be an extra step for anyone. But like we said, like, they could use a computer at the library, someone could walk them through it and put it on their Kindle.
Most of our patrons just use their cell phones.
Oh.
The program just comes on most cell phones also.
Overdrive app. Yeah.
Right.
Just a warning, we have 5 minutes until our time with Zoom is up. So if anybody has any last minute statements, I think we have covered everything that we needed to cover. We went over some problems that we foresee. We went over how who we need to talk to about it. We went over how we get the data, what kind of data we need, and then the feasibility for the creating the collective collection development for ebooks. So if anybody has anything we need to add, speak now.
Or forever hold your peace.
Practicing for my wedding.
Yeah. Yep. Same.
I think I'm all set.
All right. Well, why don't we just kind of, this is kind of late, like, introduce ourselves so that, hi, Dr. Battleson. I'm Cheryl Shelton.
Hi, Dr. Battleson, Cheryl Tisa.
I'm Grace Aslino.
Sorry, Grace.
Sorry, Lee. No, go ahead.
Someone go. I'm Elizabeth Beardsley.
And I'm Lee Smith. Hi, Dr. B.
Okay. I guess group one out.
I'm going